Go for it, Emily.
Got it.
So we shall begin momentarily.
Do you want to start the slides? I mean, do you want to introduce?
Everybody?
Yeah.
And yep. So we can start, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
Okay, so good afternoon or good evening, or for some of you, we know it's a very early good morning. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining us for this panel presentation and discussion on the mentor trainer certification process, which is the new and revised GLOBE certification process for trainers and mentor trainers. And just to do a quick introduction to the folks that are here. You, I think, know me at this point. I'm Tony Murphy, the director of the GLOBE Implementation Office. And then we have, starting at least from where I'm looking here, Lynn Hare, who's the Education Working Group Chair. And Lynn is from the US, but the North America region on the Education Working Group. Say hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Then we have Eslam Care, who's from our CST, our Community Support Team. And many of you know Eslam from some of the sessions already and from working with him over the last couple of years. And Eslam is originally from Egypt. And so would you like to say hi, Eslam?
Hi, everyone.
And then we also have Rod Delara, who's another Education Working Group member from the country of the Philippines, and he's representing Asia and Pacific in that region. Sorry, he's representing the Asia and Pacific region in that working group. So Rod, wave.
Hi, everyone.
And Rod just told me that it's 3 a.m. in the morning in the Philippines. So we're very happy that he's here with us and going to be part of the panel. Oh, and here we have our DIS person, the Data Information Systems, or SCI, and Dave Oberoy. Many of you know Dave already from a number of years of working with him on various projects and so on. And so Dave is in California, and at least I think that's where he is. He could be anywhere, but I think it's in California.
I'm in California. Nice to
You're
see
in
you.
All right, you want to say hi, Dave?
I did say hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave. All right, so so that's the panel, and we're going to begin on the presentation here. And I think what we'll do is we'll go through the presentation first, and then if there are questions, we'll take them at the end. And please write your questions into the chat in the Zoom so that we can monitor those and get those questions answered as well. So this was a very big task that was given to the Education Working Group a number of years ago. And it had kind of come about because of requests about the training certification process, and that not a lot of people knew about it. Not a lot of people knew where to find information about it. Not a lot of people knew how to get certified as a GLOBE trainer and so on. So GIO asked the Education Working Group to start looking at that particular task and really coming up with a process that we would be able to get implemented both technologically and every other way structurally into the program, and that would have a flow to it and so on, and that people would be able to know where they were in the flow. So if you go to the next slide, or am I okay? So part of the charge for the education working group was to review the existing Globe training certification process, and then if it was possible to use that and update it to create this new one, then that would be great. But ultimately to design a process for training certification, in part of that design, getting community feedback at various points, and then also finally when that task was completed and it was being handed off to GIO and DIS to implement the process with an integration of technology, because we have this great website that has a lot of information about training and trainers and training records, and how would we make that visible to people, and how would we make sure that training records were maintained and so on. And then also as part of that, troubleshooting the process, and we're still somewhat in part of that process, I think, of troubleshooting, but we're almost at the end of that, I think. And with any new process and with any new technology that's supporting that process, there are glitches along the way, and so that's part of that troubleshooting that we've been doing, and trying to figure out how to resolve those as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So next slide. So why Globe training certification process in the first place? Why was it created? Well, back in the early days of the program, the training was very centralized, and it quickly became apparent that as the program began to grow, that centralization of training was not possible and to continue. And what I mean by that was that the training was orchestrated by the Globe Program Office in Washington, D.C. at the time, and organizing all of the trainers and sending the trainers to different locations, and all of that was centralized by that office. But as the program began to grow in the US and internationally, this was not possible to maintain for a number of reasons. And so it was considered, how do we decentralize the training process, but yet, which is the second point here, to ensure standardization for the collection, for the data collection, and also maintaining that data quality assurance, which were both integral to the program. So even though you're decentralizing, how do you ensure that the standardization of the training is going to be there for the data collection, and then that also there's that data quality assurance. So what began to form was a new Globe Train the Trainer model, where country coordinators were trained and US partners were trained, and they would in turn train the teachers in the protocols and the learning activities. And this is where the workshops that are still carried on today in perhaps slightly different formats, but that's where the workshops came about, and continued using this Globe Train the Trainer model. Because the Globe Program Office in Washington, D.C. initially was involved in this, so this began in the late 90s, transforming into this more decentralized process. And it has evolved to the latest version that we have here, which we're going to explain more about today. Who was involved? Initially, the GLOBE program staff developed this with the assistance of US partners in the late 1990s. And the most recent revision, which took a number of years, was undertaken by the Education Working Group. And I'd like to give, at this point, a shout out to the current and former Education Working Group and its members for their hard work in really putting this process together. And I remember coming out of the Education Working Group at the GLE in Ireland, and there was a lot of discussion after happening at that meeting, and it was a point where I think people looked at going back to the drawing board, kind of, to really see if this process was going to work and how it would work, and what new components might have to come into it, or what might need to be removed from it, and so on. So, and that was 2018. So this has been quite a number of years in the making, and we're going through that final phase right now of really implementing it through the technology and through the website, and the various pieces that are involved, and the various people and positions within working groups and countries and so on that are involved in this process. The process is up on the website, and I'm not going to click on this link here, but it is called the Globe Trainers Process. And if you go to that section of the website underneath Community and People, you will see and get a lot of information about the process. In addition, this is where you would upload your documents as part of the application process. And so that area of the website is very important if you are interested in becoming a trainer or a mentor trainer, and you might want to bookmark that particular page as well, so that you can get to it quickly if you're interested in following that process. And I think then we are on to creating the process, and Rod's going to lead us through that.
Okay, next slide. The revised trainer, mentor trainer certification process is the result of the Globe community's collective efforts and desire to deliver high quality teaching and learning experiences for its stakeholders through training and capacity building. In my presentation, I'd like to talk to you through the process that we all had to go through to deliver to you this revised trainer, mentor trainer manual. Click. The animation isn't working as it is. It should be. So in 2012, the master trainer certification process was released and implemented without much problem. Its implementation was mainly, if not solely, administered by country coordinators. There should be a click. Okay, the timeline isn't showing well in the graph, but doesn't matter.
I've got the original PowerPoints if you want to try switching to that real quick.
Dave, let me do
But I
it.
have the PowerPoint.
Oh, you want to show your part?
Yeah, maybe. So so can I share my screen?
Okay, I can stop sharing and you go ahead and share. Okay.
So in 2012, the master trainer certification process was released and implemented without much problem. Its implementation was mainly administered solely by the country coordinator and to a certain extent, the regional coordinating office. In 2017, Tony Murphy, director of the GIO, ordered the review of the outdated certification process with the intention of aligning it to the current and changing demands of the Globe community, and to improve the quality and prestige of being a Globe trainer or master trainer. He tasked the Education Working Group to spearhead this project. By August 2017, the Education Working Group has released its first draft. The review focused on the following aspects of the old process: to review the required competencies and knowledge of a Globe trainer and mentor trainer, the quality assurance and control processes, to ensure that each application is thoroughly and systematically evaluated, and the forms. From 2017 to 2019, the Education Working Group submitted its draft to the community for feedback, comments, and suggestion. A survey was conducted, translated in English, Arabic, Spanish, and French, was used to solicit feedbacks from the community. In 2018, while in the midst of incorporating the feedbacks of the community into the second draft, the GIO released the Globe Program's revised 2018 to 2023 strategic plan, which explicitly states that among the education goals of the Globe program is to enhance the Globe's capacity to deliver high-quality professional experiences and training. The Education Working Group took that as its mandate to quickly finish the certification process so as to contribute to the Globe's strategic outcomes. By December 2018, the Education Working Group already completed its second draft, incorporating the feedback of the Globe community. During the 2019 Globe annual meeting in Detroit, the proposed trainer and mentor trainer certification process was presented to the Globe community for final comments and suggestions. From October 2019 and November 2019, the working group finalized its revision of the certification process by incorporating the comments of the community in its revised document. And from December 2019 to 2020, the Education Working Group discussed the proposed certification process to the technical team for possible implementation, tech support, and discussion of transition issues. On January 2020, the revised trainer-mentor-trainer process was finalized and submitted to GIO for approval. Then on February 2020, the GIO approved the revised trainer-mentor-trainer process. And it was released to the Globe community on April of 2020. On October 2020, the Education Working Group conducted webinars to the Globe community to educate members on the new trainer and mentor training process. And it has been implemented since then. The trainer-mentor-trainer certification process consists of 3 stages. The first stage is the trainer application process, or the application and qualifications review. The first step is to download and fill in the application form, which can be obtained from the Globe website. Then applicants are instructed to review the criteria, fill in the form, and attach all relevant documentation and submit them to the country coordinator via email. This is then reviewed by the country coordinator. It is and evaluated and recommended to the Education Working Group. Now, the recommendation can go 2 ways. Either the applicant is recommended for training as a trainer, or not. If not, then the country coordinator informs the candidate of any deficiencies and advises him or her on when and how to address these deficiencies. Now, the candidate can complete this deficiency, and if so, he or she repeats the review process. If not, then the application process terminates. If the recommendation is favorable to the candidate, then the education working group identifies and assigns a mentor trainer. And once a mentor trainer is assigned, the candidate submits all documentation to the mentor trainer. Afterwards, the mentor trainer reviews the application and coordinates with the applicant on the process and conduct of the observation and sets the place, time, and manner of observation. Then we proceed to step 2. Step 2 is the review by the mentor trainer. First step is to observe the workshop in person, virtually, or via video submission. Complete the candidate trainer workshop observation form and submit to the country coordinator or the regional coordination office in case in countries where no country coordinator has been appointed yet for review and evaluation. Then the country coordinator or the RCO reviews and evaluates and makes a recommendation. The recommendation can either be favorable or not favorable to the candidate. If it is not favorable to the candidate, then the country coordinator informs the candidate and the mentor trainer of any deficiencies and advises him or her on when and how to address these deficiencies. Now, the candidate can either address those deficiencies and start the process all over again, or decides to terminate the process. If the recommendation is, however, favorable to the candidate, then the country coordinator and RCO reviews and evaluates and again makes a recommendation. And the recommendation is either to approve or disapprove the application. If it is disapproved, then the country coordinator or the RCO is notified. The country coordinator informs the candidate and the mentor trainer of any deficiencies and advising on her or her when and how to address those deficiencies. Again, the candidate has 2 options: either address those deficiencies and start all over again, or decides to terminate the process altogether. If the recommendation of the CCRCO is to approve the candidate, then the country coordinator and RCO is notified. Sorry. And changes the status of the applicant to trainer in the GLOBE database. For mentor trainer, the GIO changes the status. I'd like to point out a typographical error here. The one that approves is actually the education working group, not the CCRCO. So if you look at the rectangle at the bottom, it shouldn't say CCRCO to review. It is the education working group, and the education working group decides whether to approve or disapprove the application. So sorry about that typographical error. And then we go to step 3. Step 3 is maintaining an active status. In maintaining an active status, the trainer or mentor trainer. So at this stage, the applicant is already designated as a trainer or mentor trainer. He or she needs to complete the GLOBE annual survey. And if it is complete, it's either he completes the annual survey or not. If he does not, then the CCRCO changes the status of the trainer or mentor trainer to inactive in the GLOBE database. The candidate, the trainer or mentor trainer, if his status is deactivated, then he may request for reconsideration. If the request for reconsideration is granted, then he will be given a chance to complete the annual survey and the process begins again. If not, then of course, the process terminates for him and the inactive status remains. If the GLOBE annual survey is completed, then it moves to the next stage, and that is where the trainer complies and submits proof and list of GLOBE accomplishments, activities, and commitment for the past 3 years. This is done once every 3 years, and it is submitted to the CCRCO. Then the CCRCO reviews and evaluates the documents submitted. And if the trainer, mentor, trainer meets the requirement, it's either he meets the requirement or he does not meet the requirements. If he does not meet the requirement, again, the CC or the RCO changes the status of the trainer, mentor, trainer to inactive in the Globe database. And like before, he could either request for reconsideration, and if it is granted, then he will be given a chance to comply or address those deficiencies, and the process starts all over again. If not, then the process is terminated. Going back to meeting the requirements, if he meets the requirements, then the CCRCO maintains the active status of the trainer, mentor, trainer, and that is the end of the certification process.
Notice there's one question, Rod, that says, is it necessary that the mentor trainer should be from the same trainer applicant's region? Or can it be, is it not mandatory? So do the evaluator have to be in the same region?
No, it's not mandatory. If he can even make a request if he wants a certain mentor trainer to be his or her mentor.
As long as language is not a barrier, it's not a problem, as long as the person has familiarity with that candidate, it's fine.
All right, somebody going to share the original presentation now?
Yep, I'll do that now.
Thanks, Eslam.
Do you see my screen now?
It's thinking about it.
Oh, actually, it's not. Sorry. Don't think it's about it.
We got another question in the chat box, if anyone would like to tackle that while Eslam is getting prepared.
I might have a partial answer to that, but we can look up the details for yours in particular, Andrea. We have date stamps on all applications that have gone in, so we can track when it was submitted, who last reviewed it, and when they reviewed it, and what the status is. So that there should be a very quick and obvious answer once we look at the tool. So I don't know, Lynn, if you know off the top or anything like that, but we can look and see.
I don't. You would have heard if it had been, if we had seen it. That's all I can tell you. I'll go back in and look real quickly.
Yeah, we can look at the tool and find out real quick and easy. Ines has the same question. All right, so the next kind of step in this whole picture of how this came to be is Rod, who, by the way, you have a PhD in PowerPoint. I'm so impressed. I wish my package did all that. That's something. You know, how do we get from those requirements to something that people can look at and use? So I'll talk a little bit about that. Eslam, if you could go next. So as you saw, what Rod was outlining it's a workflow. It goes from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4. And along the way, people need to be able to approve or disapprove of each step in the process. So we needed to be able to create a tool that would support a workflow, which hands off from one person to the next. Any person along the way can approve or reject, as you saw, and sent it back to somebody earlier in the workflow. We also want to be able to track the progress. So we want to be able to see who approved, who rejected, and when did the action occur, just so as Andrea asked about what happened to my application, we want to be able to say, well, it was approved by so-and-so on this date at this time, and that's where it last was touched. So you can keep track of what's going on. We wanted to allow people to be able to see the workflow, and if there were comments along the way, some country coordinators might want to put in a comment that recommended somebody that talked about a particular applicant or whatever it might be. We want to be able to track comments. And then we want to restrict the visibility so that only the right people can see it. So not everybody sees everybody's information, only the right people, the person from that country can see that person. So that's kind of the goals of how we wanted to be able to build something. Next, please. Another key was communication. So we want to make sure everybody's informed about what's going on. So emails are sent to all parties for every step in the workflow. So the country coordinator will get an email every time an application comes in, every time something's approved or rejected. The applicant will get information. And we wanted to create a dashboard so it was fairly quick and easy to see what's going on, what the status is of all the applications. We also want the applicants to know what's going on. And then we wanted a place, I think Rod mentioned in the original concept, that we would email the application, but we prefer to keep it all in one place so everybody can refer back to the application. Everybody knows where it is. It's all part of the tool. So those are kind of the goals that we had in building it. Next, please. This is what it looks like, and every country coordinator should now see an option on the left-hand side menu that's called the trainer dashboard. Along with all the other kind of dashboards that you have, there's now one called trainer dashboard. And if you click on it, you'll get something that looks like the little screen on the right. I think, can you go to the next page for me? I think I have a close-up of that one. I'm not sure. No, I don't. I can go ahead and go back. There we go. So that screen that you see on the right is the main interface that people have when they're looking at the trainers and the trainer status. You'll see that on the first 4 columns is information about the applicant. So the name of the person, their email, their organization, their application, and the date they applied. And then to the right of that is every step in the workflow that Rod talked about. So the country coordinator approves it, the education working group approves it, the mentor trainer receives it, evaluates it, country coordinator and education working group again. And every step along the way, as you can see here, whoever the person is that has the power to control that column, they can approve or reject anywhere along the status. So the first line, you can see there's an approve reject green button under the education working group. That means the country coordinators approved it and it's moved into the education working group. They can look at the application. They can choose to approve or reject. If they reject, it goes back to the country coordinator, and the country coordinator can evaluate it or send it back to the applicant. So that's kind of what the interface looks like and how it works. And hopefully it's a pretty quick view, and you literally just click approve or reject when you see the applications come in. Next screen. When you do click approve or reject on any of the steps, a little window will pop up and it'll allow you to put some additional comments in there. So in this particular case, it says the trainer, John Schimmels, has met the requirements. And then you as the country coordinator can put a comment in here that will then be seen by the education working group. So if there's any strengths or weaknesses of the particular candidate or any particular concerns you have, you'll be able to put a comment in there and they'll be able to see the comment. For country coordinators, you can also recommend a mentor trainer that you think would be a good mentor trainer to take care of this particular applicant. You don't have to, but you can. And the education working group may choose to accept your recommendation, or they may choose somebody else for whatever reason they may have. But at least you'll have a place to say, I recommend you use this mentor trainer for this particular applicant. Next screen, please. For the person who applied, and this might go to Andrea to check, if you go to the page that you submitted your application, you should see a page that looks like this. And this is for the applicant sees on the website. So wherever you went to submit your application, you should be able to go back there and look at it. And you see right in the middle, there's application status, received on this date, last action that date. So that'll at least tell you when was the last time somebody looked at this or tried to do something or reviewed it or something. And if that last action was quite some time ago, then you'll know it may have gotten stalled somewhere in the process. You also have your application is sitting here that you uploaded, and there's some supporting documents that you can add as well. So you can see I add a supporting document, so you can add as many additional documents as you want. And if for some reason you submitted your application and for some reason you've changed your mind or you no longer want to be considered, at any time you can click remove application, and that will take your application out of the workflow and you'll no longer be considered to be a trainer or a mentor trainer. Next, please. Finally, the emails that come out. So this is just an example. I think I put some a request in our staging environment, and these are some of the emails that come back. So when I submitted my application, you see the first one says your application has been received and sent to your country coordinator, and the second one says your application has been reviewed by your country coordinator and has been recommended to go to the education working group. And then the third one says your application has been passed to the next stage. A mentor trainer has been assigned. So every step along the way, you should get an email that tells you what happened, and of course, then when it happened. So you as an applicant will have an idea that somebody's reviewed it, looked at it, and evaluated it. Likewise, as a country coordinator, you'll get a very similar email that lets you know somebody applied, it was approved by the education working group, the mentor trainers looked at it. Everybody will get an email to let them know what's going on. So that's kind of the view of what happened on the technical side of things and what the tool looks like and how it works. And I think next I'll pass on to Eslam, where hopefully you can drive and do it at the same time and talk about the community sport team's role.
Thank you, Dave. So this is gonna just speak shortly about or briefly about how the community support team been involved in this process. We've got involved really early I wouldn't say from the beginning, but at least shortly after. And I remember the discussion around the terms that's going to be used, using mentor trainer and how would that affect the community and so on. So from very early, we CST and GIO were involved in this. And then also we were tasked with the translation of the process in the beginning. And I remember I worked with so many members of GIO to make sure that with the translation, that we make sure that any translation, specifically for me when I was working in Arabic, for example, I had to make sure that whatever terms I use in Arabic meet exactly what the education working group intended within the process. The process translation was a long task or a big task, and we got it done. And after that, we also translated the surveys that went out to the community to collect their feedback. After that, we started thinking about the infrastructure and how we going to help with that. We did propose some ideas for the infrastructure. And I remember we shared that with the DIS team and Dave, and at that time, we had some good feedback, and then DIS did work on their own tool, and they brought the tool that works best for the process. We also helped DIS with testing the trainer dashboard tool. And then we also notified them for any issues that we thought or any feedback. And after that, we were added as to oversee or make sure that the process is going fine. So we pretty much get notified or emailed on every step of the process. So whenever an applicant submits an application, we get an email notifying us that someone submitted the application. When it's approved, we also get notified, and so on. This way, if anything happens, we're aware of it. Also, if the process for whatever reason gets stopped in the middle, or anybody needs help, they can contact us. So right now, we're pretty much we're involved with all the teams, with DIS, David and his team, with Lynn and Rod and the education working group. And we're also, helping the community, whether the country coordinators or the regional offices or the applicants who apply to become a trainer or mentor trainer. We help what we can, and we make sure that connect them all together and let them know. So whenever you have a question about anything, or if something is that application is not going through, or not you're not hearing back from either the candidate, not hearing back from the mentor trainer or from the country coordinator or from the educational working group, please let us know. Just communicate with us and email us. And I put our email here, which is globehelp@ucar.edu. And we can connect you with the right person, or we can find out where the process stopped and we can move it from there. So that's our role, and we'll move from there. So I think this is Lynn.
Yeah. So you all know that Globe trainers serve as educators training others, and they also support educators wherever there are informal, formal processes going on. And so on the Globe website, there are definitions for Globe trainers, Globe mentor trainers, candidate trainers, and candidate mentor trainers. And just know that the term teacher educator is not the same as a Globe trainer. A Globe trainer is defined as someone who can train other teachers. A Globe teacher is someone who can train in a formal or informal setting students. Okay, go on. So in order to apply, you have to first look and see if you have documentation that's going to give you something in science, in education, in training adults, and in understanding Globe. And those are the 4 critical areas that were decided on. And candidate trainers or candidate mentor trainers have to provide documentation in these 4 areas. One of the things that has been overlooked a little bit is the experience with the number of years. And so there's 2 years that you need to be involved in the Globe program, a minimum of 2 years. You need to explain the knowledge you have in each of these 4 areas, the skills that you have, and assessments. If you need to provide documentation, you can do that. PDF is the best way to submit them, and you can put them all in one PDF document and submit it through the portal. Go ahead, through the dashboard, excuse me. This is what the trainer and mentor trainer, and Lynn, I think this will get to the question you were asking. This is what the trainer and mentor trainer dashboard looks like, and I want to go over 3 different things here. You see under name, there's a little email. We're working on that. Eslam, do you know if those, we've had problems at time with that little envelope not going to an appropriate person because that's not the email that's listed in the Globe database for that person. So if someone is using a new email other than the one that they have in the Globe website from which they submitted their application, they're not necessarily going to get information that comes to them. Anyway, the name is there. If it's a mentor trainer application, it's going to say mentor trainer at the top. Otherwise, there's nothing listed there other than the name of the person. Then the organization, the country, the school, university, whatever. And then the 3rd column shows that you've submitted an application and then the supporting documents that go along with it. It's not necessary to have 18 different documents. If you can combine them into one, that's fine too. In some cases, your information in your application is more than enough, and you really don't need to supply supporting documents unless you just want to. Then the date submitted, Andrea and Inez, that this would be the date that your application was submitted. And by the way, I just looked and I don't see either one of your applications as having gone into the trainer dashboard. We can talk about that in a minute. Then, Lynn, this is what you were asking about. For both mentor trainer and trainer candidates, they have to be approved first before anybody else sees it. either by the CCO, by the CC or the RCO when there's no country coordinator. The country coordinator can help the applicant with the application process, maybe suggesting more things to put in because the applicant forgot that they did something. And so just to help that along. And if you'll see, there is something here that says pending. That means that it has gone through the process and it's waiting for that person in that column to do something. Then if it's approved, we'll just follow this top line here. If it's approved, there's a date when it's approved, and then it goes to the Education Working Committee. And the Education Working Committee either approves it or rejects it and sends it back to the country coordinator, and the person should be notified with reasons behind it, reasoning, and maybe suggestions for what needs to be added in. As you see below, Jen, we've used you as an example here. A mentor trainer is assigned. And then that mentor trainer has the right to say, yes, it's fine, I accept this candidate and will help this candidate. Or if they say, I just don't have time right now, they send it back through and reject there being a mentor trainer for the candidate. And then another mentor trainer is assigned. Then there is a review process that goes on by the mentor trainer. There's an observation that goes on. The mentor trainer will observe the candidate and talk with the candidate and then submit the evaluation. And most of the time, these observations will be approved because the mentor trainer has worked with the candidate and submits an observation that's approved. And then it goes to the country coordinator. The country coordinator looks at the observation and then either approves it or rejects it. And then once the country coordinator approves either the trainer or the mentor trainer candidate, once it goes through the country coordinator then approves it and it goes to the education working group to look over, make sure everything's fine. And then the education working group approves it. Then the country coordinator, if it's a trainer who's been approved, the country coordinator will change the status. If it's a mentor trainer, that's where GIO changes the status. They don't approve or disapprove. They just change the status to mentor trainer. So actually the major part of all of this is the country coordinator helps get the application in if need be, and then reviews it and then passes it on to the education working group, then to the mentor, then back to the country coordinator. And then when everything's finalized, the education working group then just reviews everything, says everything's fine. What I want to show you is the second line. Notice we've got two columns there that are both approved. Bara did her job and she is going to be the mentor trainer, but has not been able to work yet with the candidate. So it's pending. It's not rejected. It's just pending that observation. And so that's a waiting point sometimes when sometimes these things can be approved within a week. And sometimes it may take a little more time for the mentor trainer and the candidate trainer to work together. So the country coordinator can't do anything until the mentor trainer has finalized something and then submits it on to the education working group to finalize it. In the third one, this is a trainer application, and you can see all the supporting documents there. It was rejected and it went back to the country coordinator, And so it's pending there for some kind of change to make a correction or something. Go on to the next slide and I'll show. So there are three main reasons that applications have been rejected or will be rejected. It must be submitted in English, and that's where the country coordinator can help with that translation. And critical areas not explained. Those 4 areas have suggestions. If you look at the form, I'm seeing it in my head. If you look at the form on the left-hand side, it gives suggestions. You don't have to meet all of those, but the critical areas need to be detailed. Science, education, adult learning, and understanding GLOBE. And once again, this one has been kind of a sticky wicket. Less than 2 years involved in the GLOBE program. If someone became involved last year, they don't have 2 years experience. So their application has to be rejected. And if the application is rejected, the information as to what needs to be changed or corrected will be listed on there. So help can come. Okay, and I think next. And so the process can be found from the GLOBE homepage. You go to community, you go to people, and you go to trainers. That's just a 4-step process to get to all of this. There's information on managing workshops, on trainer materials, how to become a GLOBE trainer, how to become a GLOBE mentor. And then all of that is listed there on the GLOBE pages. And I know there are going to be more questions coming up, but that's what I have to say for now. So the country coordinator, the education working group is just meant to be in place to make sure that there's consistency and that criteria is being met, and to help the country coordinator. But the country coordinator is actually the one who helps begin this process and makes a final decision before it finalizes at the education working group. Okay, Tony?
There's a couple questions. Was this the end of the presentation, Lynn? I'm trying to remember.
No, Tony has a little bit more.
Okay.
Tony, you're on mute.
Thank you. Maybe we could take the questions because they might be more relevant now than waiting after this piece. So we could take the questions.
The one that I see kind of repeated, and I know we've had some conversations, this is might be part of that. This is the way we envisioned it, and now maybe we might want to change it. But a couple people are asking about tracking trainers and mentor trainers by sphere or by protocol. And, you know, is a trainer approved within a sphere? Is a mentor trainer approved within a sphere? How do you decide if this mentor trainer is actually qualified to evaluate that trainer, given their particular levels of expertise or interests and so on? And I know there's been some discussions and changes around that, but maybe you can address that, Tony or Lynn.
Tony?
Thank you, Lynn. So yeah, there have been some discussions around that, and we're still actually I think we're getting close to coming to the final point on that, and then that will probably involve some work on the training record. So we're going to have to talk to Dave about looking at that and so on. But there is a move, I guess, really into the fact that the mentor trainers would have or be qualified or be certified in the particular sphere that the person that they're looking at or that they're certifying. Is that correct, Lynn? That's the mentor trainer would have, let's say, certification in the sphere of Hydrosphere, and then the people that the candidate trainers that would be under that mentor trainer or candidate mentor trainers would also be looking at training in the hydrosphere sphere.
I want to go back to something because it's come up several times. And Tony, I'll take this one so you don't have to. There was a letter sent out in the fall or last summer, and the letter was asking if people were interested in being master trainers. That did not mean that if you said yes, you were then considered a mentor trainer, not master trainer. The only way that you can become a mentor trainer or a trainer now is to submit your application through this online process. The very first column that you saw. And so there's been quite a bit of confusion about that. And so if you have not submitted your application, and if you've submitted it someplace else, all you need to do is take that information and just submit it online, because it's got to be coordinated. And this is where Dave and Eslam more than Dave, I think, with this part, but it's got to be associated with your email so that everything can be tracked.
And that's very important.
Yes, you are right. Yep.
That you are the person that submits it, and you're using your Globe email, whatever email that you use for Globe, because it's tracked all along with that email. And
just to be clear on that, you have to be logged into the system in order to submit your application, and the system will use whatever email you use to log in to track you. So it's not like you can submit and put in a different email. It will use whatever your login email is. That's what will be associated. So hopefully it's one that you use and have access to the email, because that's where all the notifications will go.
Thank
We did
you,
have a
Dave.
problem early on that somebody tried to submit an application for somebody else, and that's a problem. It has to be, you as the user submitting your own application.
Yeah, we did say, okay, all of these people who submitted information, can we put it into the Globe system ourselves? And we can't, because it ends up associating with our email. And so that's been the confusion. And Barry, yes, I know that was confusing.
I have seen a number of people have posted notes that I applied to be a mentor trainer back in the fall. I've seen at least 3 or 4. And my guess is that you submitted it either as a result of that email, or your application was emailed in and it wasn't put into the tool. Because at least 2 of the people that I've looked at, I've not seen it in the tool. So it was either sent in to an email or as a result of an email. But at the end of the day, I think the answer is if you could resubmit it and make sure it's in the tool, because that's the only way to be able to track these things now. So if it was emailed some time ago, then it was probably lost.
So just to add, as Dave said, you have to be logged in to the system, to the global website, in order for the applicant, for order for them to be able to see the application. But also they have to log in with the correct account. They should have only one account in the system, but of course I've seen it so many times that users will have more than one account. For example, so a country coordinator will have the account as a country coordinator, but then they try the Global Observer app and they use a personal email or a different email, and they create a Global Observer account. So the user need to know that they need to log in with the main account that they use whether it's a partner account, it's a teacher account, or trainer or country coordinator, whatever the case is, they need to log in with that account, not just an account they just created or an additional account.
Well,
Because
there is a protection in the system that if you are not trained, you will not be able to fill out a trainer application. So a Globe
Perfect.
observer will not be able to apply. And if you're not a
Perfect.
trainer, you will not be allowed to apply to be a mentor trainer.
I know.
So there is a protection in there. So not just anybody can apply to be any of these things. You know, that's why you have to have your Globe login. So if you did happen to do, like you said, Aslam, I think the system should catch you and say, sorry, I can't do that.
Perfect. I know that if you're a trainer, it won't allow you to apply again because it said already you are a trainer for the trainer, but it will allow you for the mentor trainer. I didn't know that it will protect you if, as you said, if you're a global observer not trained, for example, and you go to apply for a trainer account, it will not. So that's good to know. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, it's a trainer. So the start over part, I see people are kind of worked up about. They sent an application a year ago, and I don't know what happened to those emails or where they went, but I believe the application is identical. And so literally all you need to do is go to the page and click upload application and send. And that's it. So it's not a laborious process. It's totally just the application being logged in, sending. I mean, it's a shame that a year's been lost. That's really unfortunate. But
And let me say this too about existing, and we're going to use the term master trainers. If you were an existing master trainer and you're applying for the mentor trainership, and Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you just say that you want to be a mentor trainer on that one pager, that you've been a master trainer and you fill it out. Existing trainers fill out the, they don't have to go through the observation. They fill out, if you're a trainer.
Yes, yeah, that's what we had decided on the,
And it's a one-page form. It's just really short. It's existing trainer, existing master trainer,
master trainer.
going to mentor trainer.
Right. And Andrea has a question there about the CC. They send the app, or the application goes directly to the education working group if they are applying for themselves as a country coordinator. How does that go through the process, I think is the question.
I don't know if we've tested that, but I think the country coordinator can just approve themselves pretty quickly and move it along.
Either that, or they can ask the RCO
Right.
to approve them. Yeah.
Right.
And also, Bara is correct. Sometimes it's the candidate who needs a training session to be observed. But also, if this person is a trainer already and are an existing trainer, they don't have to go through the observation process again. If they've already been a trainer and the country coordinator approves them. Is that right, Tony?
Are they going up to be a mentor trainer?
No, I'm not talking about mentor trainer. I'm just talking about being a trainer.
No, they don't have to be. That's correct. They don't have to be observed again because they've been observed once and they were approved on that observation. So they're fine. They don't need to do a subsequent. They don't need to do an observation for each of the spheres after that point, right? That's what we had decided.
Right. And the question has come up, and this is still something that GIL, I'm going to put it on you, Tony, is working on about the spheres. You are trained, you are certified in the sphere in which you're applying.
Yeah. That was the first question, I think, too. So you are approved in the in the sphere for which you are doing the training. Because there had been a consideration of if you were trained in one protocol, you would be trained in all of them. Right? Remember that discussion? And then that it was limited to the sphere that the protocol was in, was where you would receive the approval.
There is a recommendation from the Education Working Group that there are, what did we call it? Beginner, advanced, and optional protocols that trainers should know. Now, this has not gone through any of the other working groups for their feedback, nor has it gone through GIO. It's somewhere out there, but we've made the recommendation, and I think in the next 2 months there will be a recommendation that comes out as to, if you're a trainer in Atmosphere, these are just the basic, that was the word, the basic protocols you should know. And then there are advanced, and mentor trainers should more than likely know basic and advanced. And then if you wanted to add in the options, you could. Because mentor trainers should know a lot more of the protocols, if not all of the protocols, in order to mentor someone who's trying to teach them in an observation setting. This has been a long process, people. I'm just going to say we've been doing this for 10 years, and we're looking at all the questions everyone has and trying to see where we can alleviate confusion. And then sometimes we can't wrap our own brain around the confusion. So we're trying the best as we can. And I want to commend Dave and Eslam, because every time we've said there's a glitch, or every time we've said there's something else that needs to be added to the dashboard, they've been able to somehow do it. It's been a long, hard process.
Okay, and I do want to make sure that we cover the last part of this here. So, and I do know that there are other questions probably in the chat there. So what we'll do is we'll save the chat and we can answer the questions that are not yet answered, I guess, and either send them to everybody or put them up perhaps as an FAQ on the trainer process page as well. So yep, go ahead.
Sorry, I just see the questions on the spheres coming back. Just to be clear, right now, there was no requirement to track trainers or mentor trainers by sphere. So there's nothing in the system that supports that. We actually removed that capability. And so now they are talking about adding it back in, but the mechanism by which that happens has not been resolved or discussed or implemented. So if you're confused about the spheres, you'll probably continue to be confused because there is no answer. It's not in the system right now, and it's being discussed as to how that should happen. So just to be clear. Yeah.
Also,
I want to go through one more thing. If you were a master trainer, fill out the one pager. You do not need to be observed. It's a one pager, and it says that on the Globe website.
In the Globe trainers process.
Yep. And also, I think Zoran asked about the 2-year condition that Lynn mentioned, that they have to be active for 2 years within the system. You asked if there's something, the system is tracking those 2 years, or who's tracking those 2 years. You are correct. The country coordinators also are responsible for that. When they get the application, first of all, the applicant themselves, they need to know that they have been within Globe and active within Globe for 2 years before they apply. And also, if not, if they do that before the 2 years, the country coordinator should be aware of that also. And that's also a reason for rejection, or to let them know that they need to be within Globe for 2 years before they can apply for the mentor for the trainer process. And Lynn have been already working on that, and she saw that a lot of the applicants they did not complete the 2 years. So thank you, Lynn, for getting our attentions to that issue with the 2-year condition.
Okay, so Eslam, if you want to go to the next slide here. So as Lynn said, this has been a very long process. And what's actually come out of this process is for big tasks like this that will involve a lot of different parts of the program and collaboration between DIS and GIO, and in some cases Global Observer folks as well. That needs a lot of planning and a lot of project management. And we actually have a project manager person coming on board in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be starting that person looking at some of these other big pieces that are going to be coming to us and that are in motion actually right now as well, like the deactivation process for protocols. And then as new protocols will also, what that process will be for getting new protocols on board. And they are complicated pieces because they have, in the case of the deactivation, they have existing materials, and they have the data entry pages and so on. And there's a lot of collaboration that needs to occur between DIS and GIO on the deactivation piece, and then as well on activation of any new protocols once they've been approved and so on. So this trainer, mentor, trainer was very much a guinea pig, I guess, in some ways, because it was very big with a lot of moving parts in it too. And so we've developed a process here that will continue to be refined, I'm sure, as our new project manager also comes on board. But typically what will happen with these is that, as did happen with the trainer, mentor, trainer, and the deactivation of the protocols process, GIO will ask for the help of a working group in the advancement of the program by taking on specific tasks, considering aspects of the tasks from its own perspective as the working group. So in this case, the education working group, and then discussing this in the working group from the various regional perspectives. And that's why the working groups are great to be leading some of this, especially in the development of the draft kind of ideas around these, because they have that regional perspective. Then in addition, the specific working group, so in this case, education, would circulate the drafts of the documents to other working groups for their input on the task, and where the process is at this point as well. So getting the other four working groups getting their input on what they think about what they've seen, and then also where they think the working group is in the process of developing out the documentation for whatever the task is. One of the newer pieces here is that the working group should also consult with DIS early on, particularly if it's a big piece like this that's going to have a large impact on the infrastructure and on DIS, and talking with Dave and his team about whatever it is that the working group is, whatever that task is, and then getting feedback from Dave and his team on, what different possibilities perhaps might be available within the structure and so on. And then if the Globe Programs app, Globe Observer, is involved, also working with them, and then being in constant contact with us and any other group that they would like to seek information from or additional resources from. And I'm not saying resources in the sense of financial, but if there's any type of assistance that they need, GIO will work with them to make sure that if it's a subject matter expert or something like that, that they're looking for to come in and also get some and consult with that person. For example, GIO would work on that to find that subject matter expert. Next slide. So then once the working group gets the document to a final form, I apologize about that outside my window there. I seem to have lost part of the screen here. There we go. Thank you. Once the working group gets the document to a final draft form, it's generally released to the community for a comment period. And you heard Rod talk about that and about the different comment periods that we had for this particular task, because it was a big task and it also would impact a lot of people. I hope you can still hear me over that. And then it's critical for community members at this point to really consider the document and to read the document, to review it. And this is the point where if you have any questions or comments or concerns, that it's time to express those at that particular point. And this is really a kind of a collection point for these. And getting that information then back to the working group is the responsibility of GIO. And we collect the comments and we get them back to the working group. And then the working group considers the questions or the concerns, and they discuss what might happen as a result of that. Some may result in changes to the proposed process, some may not. And generally what we try to do is make sure that the questions are answered and that the working group gives its rationale for that particular answer, and that those go back out to the community so that people can see that their questions were considered and answered by the working group, that they just don't go into a void. And then when the final document is ready, it's handed off to GIO, and then we forward it to GPO for review and comment. It's also given to DIS at this point, and then GIO staff read the document, and both GIO and DIS staff then assume the responsibilities of implementing the product and the process in a collaborative manner. Typically, GIO would be in the lead on these particular pieces, and so what we would be tasked with is really creating a timeline and making sure that the right people are involved in that timeline at various points along that, and then working with Dave and his team to figure out how DIS and where DIS fits into that timeline so that it's done in a collaborative form. And so these are this process is really going to be something that will be guiding us in the next big pieces that will be coming in from the working groups, and big tasks that will need to be completed. And I think there's another slide as well. If I'm remembering correctly, Eslam, if you can forward. There we go. And so then within GIO, in addition to what you've seen there as kind of the external process or a cumulative process, there's a new internal process that we're working on here. And this is to ensure a smooth transition from the working group to GIO of the document and whatever that's relating to, whether it's a product or a process related to the task. We're going to ensure that communications with DIS happens earlier in the development of the working group document, and that implementation process with DIS is clear on what that's going to be, and there probably will be a lot of negotiation around that particular process as well. And then internally to designate staff to project manage the task, and that will also include creating a timeline and assigning staff to various aspects of the project, and making sure that those are that any dependencies with different aspects of the timeline are considered and are held to that timeline. And then create a communication plan for the task and for the, and what I mean by the task there is really the outcome of what the working group has worked on. So keeping the specific working group updated on the progress of that as it goes through the GIO. And then also the other working groups of the progress and any other groups that were involved in the development of the paper that the working group, the specific working group had worked with or called upon for advice. Update the community at large on where we are in that process. Update the sponsors as well on the progress of the particular task. Notify the community when the product is finalized and ready for launch. And then working with DIS and or others to launch it to the community. So these are various learning pieces, I guess, that over the process of the mentor trainer that we saw that really needed to be more evident, I think, to people, and also a very clear process internally here, so that once the project comes into us from the working group, there's a clear pathway and a clear timeline for it to exit GIO and become visible to the community. So any questions on that? We've about 4 minutes, I think, for questions. And so this also is a work in progress, because I'm sure that we'll be learning as we go along, but these hopefully will cover some of the main pieces that there were some challenges with the mentor trainer. And I think that the next couple of tasks that will be coming up, which will be the protocol deactivation, and then hopefully the protocol activation process, that they will run smoothly, and there will be communication to the community on how and when these are particular things are happening.
Tony, I was just
Yep.
trying to go through the chat here. There's a lot of questions about the trainer, mentor trainer, regarding, like, 2 years of experience. Who does that apply to? How does it apply? Things like that. So I think an FAQ on that page to
Yep.
address those kinds of questions would be very helpful.
Yep, there is an FAQ already on that page, but yeah, we can add to those.
A trainer, in order to apply to be a trainer, you have to have you have to have 2 years of
years.
experience, at least 2 years of experience. You cannot become a mentor trainer without having first been a trainer
Mm.
or a master trainer.
For how long? Like, I think that's one of the questions.
You mean
When
how
can
long?
you go
After,
from
after you
trainer
become a
to,
trainer, for how long until you be able to apply to become a mentor trainer?
right?
Well, the mentor trainer has to have a lot of experience, a lot more experience in order to mentor other people. And so it would depend upon I don't think we've ever set a time frame for the mentor trainers, but you need experience being a trainer prior to being a mentor trainer. Mentor trainer is not a term of importance. It's actually very much a working title now. It's quite different from what a master trainer was.
I don't think there was ever a duration or a time frame put on the becoming a master trainer, even from a trainer either. I don't think that was ever in place, because it was generally looking at experience of people to become master trainers. But yeah, we'll save this chat and we'll go down through those questions and make sure that they're answered and that they go up on the FAQ.
There are some questions about maintaining your status and who knows if you've been there for 2 years, if you've filled in the survey, the country coordinator might not know. So how does that work? Who's going to provide that information and so on?
Well, when you join the program, right, when you created your account.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm a trainer and I want to stay an active trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Who is it that is
Oh.
looking at my materials to determine that I can maintain my active trainer status?
That's the education working group, right? Because the person has to apply with a packet as well of materials to show that they were active. Not a
Well,
packet, but examples of, right?
Well, the country coordinator would be the one who would more closely know if that person has been doing something. But if you are a trainer, you just submit that one page that says, yes, I want to continue as an active trainer. And this is what I've done over the last 3
Right.
years. The
Right.
country coordinator then looks at that and says, yeah, that's right, they've done it. Sends it on to the education working group. The education working group goes, that's fine. Keep your status, no problem.
So there's nothing in any system currently, and I think we said once this goes live, we'll come back and figure out some of the supporting things
Yep.
that need to happen. So one of
Yep.
the supporting things that probably needs to happen is to have some kind of a timer or a reset or a something for trainers to say, hey, they've been doing it for 3 years. Let make sure that somebody gives them an evaluation, and then we can click a button that says keep them going. But that has not been developed yet.
Well, I don't
Right,
think it's an evaluation necessarily, but I do think it would be simple. If someone submits a survey, then there's a column by their name that says, yeah, they've submitted the survey.
Yeah, but nobody knows who submitted the survey. So
Oh, they're anonymous?
it's not in the system per se.
It's
I mean, this
not
is
in that
details we
system.
can work out. Yeah, but
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that we have to revisit, Dave, because we wanted to get this piece rolling first.
absolutely. Yeah.
Make sure that it was correct, and then we were going to come back to the active status piece.
All right. Well,
Any
that
other
may be it.
questions or?
I want to say one other thing that it's come up on here. We had a lot of trainers on the list. We didn't. There are a lot of trainers who were on the list who were no longer active.
Right.
A lot. And in a way, this is actually more reliable in keeping those trainers who are active. That was one of the things country coordinators were saying, who are the active trainers, or somebody needed something for a workshop and
Right.
they were saying, who are the active trainers? And I click on the list and they're no longer active, or they don't get back with me, or I never hear from them. And so this was partly to address that, was who of you wants to maintain your trainer status? So I don't think it's, if we can ever get this first part settled, then it's just this one page that says, yes, I want to maintain a trainer status. Or if you're a master trainer and you say, yes, I want to be a mentor trainer and this is what I've done. So it was meant to make it easier, I think, so we would know. Yeah, it was a very strong recommendation from the community of who do
Yeah.
we have who are active trainers.
Yep. Okay, so thank you to Lynn and Eslam and Rod go to bed, and Dave for being part of the panel. Thank you all, and thank you all for your questions. And this has been a very rich learning experience for all of us, and really looking at how do we in the next iteration of this and some of the other pieces that will be coming in from working groups, how do we make these pieces flow easier and quicker so that we're not working on a project like this for 10 years, since it was initially put forward many, many years ago. So thank you, and please don't forget that there is a Global Observer session tonight at 5 p.m. I believe, Mountain Time, and then we will be starting tomorrow morning. Let me just take a quick look here at the agenda, and Wednesday morning we will be starting with, on computer, okay, 7 a.m. Mountain Time, and we have a number of different sessions going on. We've got Globe Teachers and Best Practices Networking, a networking session about communicating about climate, a network session on the GISN, the Globe International STEM Network, members and potential members, and US partners and CCs is another networking session. And then we have a session specifically for the students for the student experience. So lots to choose from there tomorrow morning again, and we'll see you bright-eyed and tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. See
Goodbye,
you
everyone.
tomorrow.
Bye.
See you.
Eslam, can you stay on for just a second?
Sure.
I'm gonna stop recording.
Okay.
You can
Thank you,
stop recording, please.